For more on this discussion, Sergio dos Santos, who speaks on education matters for the Democratic Alliance in Gauteng. Sergio, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on. We want to discourage that at all costs. That's the best that we have heard coming from the Department of Education in Gauteng. You, of course, had called for an enforcement of more stringent measures. So when you put the two up against each other, did you get what you were calling for?
Good evening, firstly. So look, this week there seems to have been a bit of a trend among some political parties engaging in campaign activities. So there were two this week in Gauteng. There was one in the south of Johannesburg, and I believe there was one today in Eldorado Park, also in Johannesburg. But I also believe that there was one this week as well in Limpopo as well. So I think there is a bit of a trend that needs to be avoided. So in terms of the Act, Section 33A, if I'm not mistaken, it does state that political activities should be avoided within the school environment. It outlines what type of activities is prohibited, such as campaigning, and it really speaks about interfering during the teaching and learning times. So this is becoming a concerning trend. And as the Democratic Alliance, when we visit schools as public representatives. We don't go in our daily regalia. We don't go campaigning. We go merely just to introduce ourselves, to visit the schools, see what the school environment is like. This past week, I've been going around Gauteng, visiting various schools, assessing school readiness, assessing admissions, and how can I assist as a member of the provincial legislature and serving on the Education Portfolio Committee, how can I assist the schools or the parents and the learners for access to school, or if there's any issues with infrastructure.
Yeah. So looking at it more on an oversight kind of approach. So why in the instances, for example, in the areas that you have mentioned and the trend that you have mentioned, would you have characterized those particular activities as political campaigning? So what were those parties doing?
All right. So the three activities that took place this week that we received information about, so the one in Limpopo was ANC. They visited various schools, and it was actually SATU as well that had their cars branded saying SATU votes for the ANC, and this was seen inside schools. The one from EFF, there was a video circulated on social media. We did do a press release about that, and you can hear clearly on the video that they were campaigning for the EFF. They were telling the learners that the EFF loves you, and tell your parents that the EFF loves you and loves the parents, and so on. And then I believe today I haven't seen any video footage or photos, so I can't say for certain how bad it was, but I do believe that Action SA was in various schools today in Eldorado Park campaigning in regalia, but I can't say to what extent it was. So I think it's unacceptable when you interfere with teaching and learning environment. Teaching and learning, it's sacred. We have seen over the years that education has been falling a little bit. You know, we dispute the actual pass mark, like the matric pass mark. We do believe that it is much lower. So when it comes to education, we really urge all political parties not to interrupt the teaching and learning, especially during teaching and learning times, and not to campaign. Schools should be apolitical.
Yeah. So are you saying, in terms of the call that you're making, you're calling for something a little bit more stringent? You know, when you have elections, for example, you have rules by the IEC that says there will be no wearing, for example, of political regalia, or there will be no political party stands in this particular radius of a voting station, and at this particular point campaigning stops. So there shouldn't be somebody who's busy outside signing up people or saying vote this party or do something like that. Does the Act stipulate something of that nature in so many words?
So in terms of the Electoral Act, you need to stop campaigning 24 hours before any election. So from now until when the election day is, political parties are allowed to campaign. The Basic Education Laws Amendment Act stipulates, and it's a national act, and it stipulates the prohibition of political activities within the school environment and specifically around school times. So the National Act is quite clear on that. So we urge all political parties to adhere to the National Act, and any political party that does not adhere needs to be reminded of that. And we urge the Gauteng Department of Education to ensure that political parties know what they can and cannot do during school times especially, and ensure that there are strict controls. When political parties are trying to campaign at schools, the schools shouldn't allow political parties to go in. Again, as the Democratic Alliance, when we go inside schools, we not in our regalia, and we go there as public representatives representing either our wards or our constituencies or our portfolios to assess school readiness and so on. So we really do not agree that political parties are interrupting learning and teaching to campaign.
Yeah. Where did we blur that line? One would say, for example, even in the part of the Democratic Alliance, for example, if there are conflicts at schools in the Western Cape, you see parties going to schools in their political regalia. So, for example, if there's a hair policy issue, there's a racism issue, there's an admissions issue, and so on and so forth. Parties go there in their regalia, clad in blue, if there's a DA, ANC in their colors, or EFF in the red.
So, again, you know, when there are protests or a picket or something of the sort, it can happen as long as it's outside of the school and it doesn't interfere with the teaching and learning environment. So that is not a problem as long as the learning and teaching is not interfered at all. But to go in your party regalia inside the school during school times and interfere with that process, that's we say that it's not allowed. And the National Act is clear. So it's not that the Democratic Alliance is not wanting political parties to do that. We adhere to the law, and we call on other political parties to adhere to the law as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't speak for the EFF. I believe that what they were doing, they were distributing food packs at a particular school, and they can come and argue that, well, we were actually looking after the welfare of the students, not necessarily campaigning.
Look, so even earlier in the week, you know, when I sent out my press statement with regards to that video, I specifically said it there, and I reiterate, we welcome any organization that is trying to assist our learners with their, you know, well-being, and that includes food packs. To do it during the school time, and the video is clear, you can see it. All the learners are inside the class, and they're distributing the food packs. And they campaigning. They're saying it's from the EFF. You know, tell your parents the EFF loves everyone. So that's very clear that they campaigning. We've done it in the past where we've done also food packs. We've donated sanitary pads. We've donated school shoes. But again, we don't interfere with teaching and learning period. And when we do those type of donations, we pre-arrange with the school, and we'll find a time that the school and the SGB has agreed to do that. We don't interfere during teaching and learning times.
Yeah. Sergio, finally, before I let you go, do you think then within the department there is capacity to enforce those rules and on how to behave?
Well, look, I think that through the department and through the MEC, they need to engage with all political parties in the province and ensure that their structures know the law and what is permissible and what is not permissible. Where do we draw the line? Does the department have capacity? Well, you know, when we're looking at school admissions and the amount of people that are still waiting for placements, you know, one has to ask, does the department really have capacity for anything? And if you're looking at how many asbestos classrooms that we still have in the province when it was supposed to be eradicated back in 2016. So in terms of that, I would say, you know, there's a lot to be done. But God willing, after the next elections, there will be a change and there will be better education policies in place in Gauteng at least.
Speaking for the Gauteng DA education sector, Sergio dos Santos there. Much appreciated and thank you for your time.